middle-aged fellas aren't really very Christmassy, I don't think. Not for the most part, anyway. They've got little time for the traditional Christmas movie, especially. Whether it's the schmaltzy, empty tinsel look of them, or the message that family is the most important thing, when we all know at that age that family is the worst bit of Christmas because of their tired indifference at the presents that I've spent money buying them, and also they have the opposite political opinion to me at the dinner table. I just want to go home. Anyway, there's nothing for us middle-aged fellas in movies. So we had to look for our own cinematic entertainment at this time of year, be it the hilarious hijinks of Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation, the stabby festive murder of Black Christmas, and of course the granddaddy of smartassery constantly presented as an original idea as a Christmas movie, that being Die Hard. One movie that gets overlooked a bit though is another bona fide 80s classic that has a little bit more crimbo trimmings than Bruce Willis's jaunt up a tower without his shoes and with ho 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 a machine gun. That movie is of course Robert Zemeckis' classic Gremlins. An anarchic tribe of genetically altered lizard vermin are tearing up the sleepy township of Kingston Falls, a locale that looks familiar to fans of Back to the Future, but was definitely more inspired by Bedford Falls from It's a Wonderful Life. The beasts in the movie's title all spawn from Gizmo, a furry Christmas gift from Billy Peltzer's salesman father. The Gremlins themselves, they sing carols in one scene. Billy's girlfriend Kate talks of a tragic accident involving her dad trying to do a incredibly dangerous and probably quite foolhardy Santa stunt in a chimney. Gizmo wears a festive hat, is covered in snow and lights, and we don't even have to reach at all, do we? There's no question about it. Gremlins is a Christmas movie, and you don't even have to explain that one away to the wife. And it's also a good excuse to watch a decent film that isn't really in keeping with the spirit of the season. It's anarchic, it's silly, it's daft, and it's violent. And your children won't frown every time John McClane suggests that someone's relationship with their mother goes beyond that of a maternal nature. It's awesome, even though the reproduction and transformation biology makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Gremlins has had a fair gaggle of games based on the pair of movies, ranging from the ZX Spectrum and Atari to the Nintendo Wii. The best of these games is unquestionably the NES Gremlins 2, a top-down viewed action platformer with superb graphics and an even better soundtrack by Sunsoft. But Gremlins 2 The New Batch isn't very Christmassy at all. But the game we're talking about is suitably covered in highly flammable festive chintz. Gizmo vs. Stripe was published by Dreamcatcher Games and developed by French development team Magic Pockets, and is a Gameboy Advance game that was released in 2002. Originally, it was going to be released in a 3D engine form on the GameCube and PlayStation 2, but these games were cancelled. Screenshots exist of the PlayStation 2 and GameCube version, and it was programmed by LSP. It would have been a third-person squad shooter with the player either playing as a Gremlin or Mogwai team, and it's very different from the game we're talking about today that did get released. A 2D platformer. Well, it's the Game Boy Advance. It's a Super Nintendo, but for your pocket. So, platform games, yes, that's the most logical result. Christmas has fallen upon Kingston Falls, which is evident from the iced sky water and the fact that it's engulfed in tacky coloured lights, and no doubt shopkeepers in Kingston Falls are shifting their Link's gift sets and little quiz card games closer and closer to the tills to festively and cheerily extract as much money from your patrons as possible. That is the true meaning of Christmas. You, at the start of the game, are faced with a stark choice. Do you want to save Christmas, or do you want to destroy it? Gizmo is on the side of keeping December the 25th full of cracker pulling and mistletoe sexual assaults, whereas Spike, the gremlin, would like to suggest that you can stick your Yule log up in between your rosy red sitting cheeks. He's determined to steal all the presents in Kingston Falls, which is a rather specific intention that I don't recall being in the movies. In the movies, they were more about general chaos, debauchery and killing old ladies using stair lifts than not letting little Samuel have his Operation board game. Maybe Spike's dad got stuck in a chimney, but then Spike's dad is technically Gizmo, and we know that doe-eyed chap is still upright on his hairy plates of meat, so it's clearly not that. The 5 levels are based around locales from the original movie, taking in such places as the old Asian man's shop and the cinema where the Gremlins, I can tell you, have a raucous time of it. The climax of the game pits Gremlin against Mogwai in mortal combat in the toy shop. Just Spike and Gizmo, mano a mano, or Mogwai a Gremlo. Gizmo is armed with a flashlight with which he can turn his wayward progeny into the contents of an old man's handkerchief, but he can also stun them with a Blanca-esque rolling attack should you be low on those batteries for that torch. Gremlins is probably the only franchise I can think of where the hero is a father who kills multiple of his own children just because they misbehave. It's weird when you think about it like that, isn't it? The Gremlins come in multiple guises and attack in a variety of ways, with the standard Gremlin goons patrolling, hoping to grab Gizmo and force custard pies down his cake hole. This will then turn him into another Gremlin. What's causing damage to Gizmo here isn't clear, but that's possible because it's best that we don't think about it. I mean, they're spiky in places, aren't they? Get enough gifts and stick them under the Christmas tree, and you're done with the level. Stripe's missions are similar, but he's armed with post-midnight custard pies, which, as I've previously mentioned, morph his Mogwai opponents into little monsters for his legion. The aim is still to grab as many gifts as possible, where I presume he opens up the box and replaces the treat inside with a curled out Christmas gift of his own, courtesy of his post-feast Christmas clear-out. Controls are a mite bit slippery, particularly when scaling some of the scenery objects, and the pair of protagonists have a bit of inertia that's a struggle to deal with at times, particularly when you start playing the game. The game itself, despite having 2 separate character stories, is quite light on content really. The level layouts are identical for both Gizmo and Stripe, and for the most part, the levels themselves are very short. You'll see all you need to see, and at least one of the endings within a couple of hours. While there is a 2-player mode available by use of the link cable, that probably won't keep you coming back too often either. Not that I would know, as I don't have a link cable to Gameboy Advances, nor indeed any friends. It's ultimately a bit bland too, as generic a Western platformer as you could ever hope to play, the sort of licensed game that was 10 a penny on the shelves in the 16-bit era on your Super Nintendo or Mega Drive. Think like Asterix or Real Monsters or something like that, or one of the Ren and Stimpy games perhaps. Playing it feels a bit like that late afternoon lull of activity on Christmas Day when everyone's drunk, fat and asleep, and you're awake and thinking about turning the light on in the front room, but you don't want to wake anyone up, so you just sit there doing nothing in the dark. That feeling is the same as you are when you get to about level 5 when you're foraging for Christmas gifts on a fire engine in this game. So can I recommend Gizmo vs Stripe? No, not really. It's a shame really. I suggest playing the NES version of Gremlins 2 instead. And if that's not Christmassy enough for you, and it isn't really, how about Die Hard? You could play the NES one, that's fantastic. Or how about the PC Engine version? And I can tell you what makes me think about Christmas the most. It is slaughtering army privates in an Amazonian jungle that's somehow outside a New York corporation skyscraper. This, as opposed to what I said earlier, is the true meaning of Christmas. Now, you enjoy that festive period, you enjoy your Bucks Fizz at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you enjoy your listening to Wham, and then never having to listen to it until December the next year afterwards. But for me, it's a mere K thanks bye.